Hello friends, welcome to part 16 of the React tutorials. In this part, we will learn about render props. They are used similar to HOC or higher order component where we create the common functionality in them so that it can be shared between components. So let's dive into it and see how they can be used instead of HOCs. Actually, the code is much more cleaner than the HOD and easier to understand. And yeah, we can see render props been used more in the project than HOC. HOC is mainly restricted to libraries like Redux, but that's why it is very important to learn. But we'll now know how to use render props. So render props, for that we are using our same project. This is the project which we are been using throughout the series. So what we are going to do, we will have again start with the click counter type of a component. Actually exactly same component it will have here. Click, we cannot have the same name, so we will have it as 2.js. Okay, so after that it again a class based component. Let me increase the size. RCE, yeah, like this. Then our const count is 0. So we'll have a similar click counter which we created at the start of the previous part. Okay, so after that this state variable we'll use here. We are destructuring it. This dot state not like this. We'll have a button. On click fit, we will create this function soon. We will run this function increment count clicked count times. Now it's time to create this function. This dot set state, similar to what we did previously. We are using the previous state or previous state. So this is a special type of set state in which we update through the previous state and not directly. Previous state dot count plus 1. Now let me see whether it is working. Let me remove this. Let me remove this too also. Yeah, it is working perfectly. So similar, now we'll have a hover counter, but since hover counter name is already taken, our counter to .js. Okay, so it will also be quite similar to what we have created here, so it's better I copy it. So I had copied it. Our counter, the same state and everything will be same, only instead of the button I will have a h2 on mouse over, and instead of clicked, let hovered count times. Let me save it. Let me go back. HOV hovered counter. And let me hover over it. Yeah, it is increasing, and it is also increasing, means our code is running. So as usual, we are repeating our code, which is not a good thing. This same state, same increment counter, so we are repeating, so it is not good. So again we are going to fix it, and this time we are going to fix it with render props. So for render prop, just like with HOC, we are going to create a separate function, separate component. So let me come here and counter render.js, then again RCE, remove the named export, and here our const. So why not to use that, why to create it again? So what we are going to do, as you might have recollect, let me cut it, let me paste it here. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to move the functionality here. Now in my return, this dot props dot render. So you might be wondering, what is this render again we are using? So instead of this render, we could have used any other function name, it doesn't matter, but this is the way which we follow, which the community follows. So we have to do this like this, or nobody will understand we are using render props. So this dot props dot render will get a prop to this. Okay, so that is named as render. And this dot state dot count, comma, this dot increment count. So we are doing this because, see, the render prop. What is render prop? Render prop refers to a technique for sharing code between React component using a prop whose value is a function. So this render, this is actually a function in which we are passing this. So we'll see this soon. So now let me save it, and let me come here, and everything is okay. But the only thing which we need to change is first, comma, increment count. It is not a state anymore, it is props, and so we have to remove this. Okay, and we are done. Similarly, Let me do that in the hover counter also. So I am removing it, comma, increment count, this thought, props. Let me save it. And now the main thing, now how we use it in app.js, that's the main thing. So as I have told earlier, what we are doing, we are it is the way in which the we share code using props whose value is function. So that function we have to create, that way we will create now. So now counter render, so it is imported, counter render is imported. After that render, let me bring it here. So we have this prop render, so we're calling that, which is the main thing. See, now let me close it also. Yeah, now this is the main thing. In render, we'll pass a function count, comma, increment count, this two. Now we will call the function now. Let me remove it from here and we'll paste it here. In the render prop, we are passing a function, because see, and in that what we are doing, click counter 2, this count and increment count, we will pass it there. So click counter 2 will get this as a props from here only. So count equal to count, increment count equal to increment count. So this is how we do with render prop. So let me before saving, let me do the same thing here also. So it's better I copy this. So I'm doing for hover count also. Just this, let me remove this and hover counter, and we are done. So let me check. Okay, see, it is working perfectly fine. So we have moved all the logic out of our hover counter and click counter and created a count render. So this have a prop which takes a function which passes it to a function, the values. So we are doing it like that. So this is how render props works, and the code is quite simple in comparison to HSC. So there is a slight different variation which you will see at many places for render props. The slight variation is what, instead of passing it as a props, we will pass it as a children. So at render the children are also props, but a different type of props. So for that, what we are going to do, first like this, and remove this. Now we won't have this render name, so let me remove this. also. So this is the verification. We are passing it inside the counter render, so it automatically become children, and we are passing the function here. So this is the difference. And similarly we have to do this for our counter 2. Let me save it. Error, because what we need to do, this is not anymore, this.props.render doesn't exist, but children does exist because we are passing it inside as a children. And only this much change you have to do. Let us check whether it is working. Yeah, it is working. And so it is working. So some people might find that render keyword a bit weird, because see, the render is here also and render is there also, so they can follow this pattern, passing it as a children, passing the function as a children. So this completes our part 16 of the series. See you soon in part 17.